It is with heavy hearts that we at Combat Sports Talk send our condolences to the families of Kobe Bryant and Coach Alto, John Altobelli. This is episode 110 of Combat Sports Talk. Welcome to Combat Sports Talk, a podcast dedicated to UFC and Bellator discussion, the MMA community, and combat sports in general. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, and joining me this week is the man with the keys to victory, John Keys. What's up, John?
Hey, what's happening, man? What's going on?
And the coach to the stars, the double champ, George G Money Stallworth.
All right.
All right, guys. Hey, let's start this off. We started off with the announcement of the death of Kobe Bryant, which happened, I believe, yesterday. It was a shocking thing. People are still mourning that loss, but we also wanted to make sure that we mentioned Coach Alto, John Altobelli, as well. His daughter and Kobe Bryant's daughter were on the same basketball team. They were on their way to play a game where Kobe Bryant was expected to coach, and their helicopter went down somewhere in Southern California.
George, you want to say something?
Sad news hearing about that, man. I was a very big Kobe fan. Actually got to go watch him play once. My heart goes out to his family. My heart goes out to the fans across the world, man. And I don't know, man. It's a very sad day. No one expected something like this, especially with Kobe. It's just one of those lives taken way too soon. He was just in the second act of his life. You know what I mean? Like, he retired from basketball, and a lot of people were interested in what he was going to do next.
It's a sad loss when we have a star that shined so bright to be cut off at such a young age. And I say young age because I'm 45. And he was 41, so I was like, "Wow, you really don't know when your time happens. It just does." A friend of mine, he was floored by it. So I mean, just to show you how much of an influence this man had. Okay, how far-reaching it was. I heard from my friends who don't even follow basketball, that follow their computers more than anything. I heard from friends from that do follow basketball, that do follow sports, that follow politics, that follow religion. Everybody talked about Kobe because Kobe had a facet in some part of that realm. Kobe was a Catholic. Kobe was until Saturday night the third highest scoring basketball player of all time, and only to be surpassed by LeBron James. Kobe was even though he lived a short life, he led a full life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's interesting to see how the NBA and many teams are looking to remember Kobe Bryant. I know that the Dallas Mavericks, the local NBA team where we are all located, they are saying that they will never have another 24. No one will ever wear the number 24 for the Dallas Mavericks in honor and respect for Kobe Bryant. We're also wondering what the NBA is looking to do in honor of Kobe Bryant. So, we like to talk about the greatest of all time. That's a topic that's always on the minds of a fan of a sport. Who is the greatest of all time? Here in mixed martial arts, we're always talking about who the greatest of all time is. And interestingly enough, in basketball, Kobe Bryant's name doesn't always end up in that same conversation with the likes of Michael Jordan and LeBron James, but when you look at the career that Kobe Bryant had, when you look at how he got into the league as one of the youngest players ever to come into the league at that time, and to do what he did, 5 championships and all those kinds of things, his name needs to be, in those conversations as well. So, once again, our deepest sympathies and condolences go out to the families of everyone who lost lives in that helicopter crash. And, let's just all take a moment to remember Kobe Bryant and Coach Alto.
Yeah, and just before anything, Coach Alto used to actually play baseball for the University of Houston back in his college days. So, you know, yeah, I mean it's sad that we lost 9 lives yesterday morning. So
All right. Well, this is a UFC and mixed martial arts podcast, so let's get into our headliner. All right, this is the headliner. This is the topic that we want to talk about above all other topics, of all other events that are going on. This is what we consider to be the number one topic, and that topic is Stephen A. Smith versus Joe Rogan.
woo.
All right, so let's set it up. Stephen A. Smith, he is one of the faces of ESPN. This guy has been covering sports, he said, for 25 years. Known for his really bombastic style of just being super loud and super in your face with his opinions. Was once the foil of Skip Bayless, is now on his own show. I can't remember the name of the other guy who's on his show now that took Skip Bayless's place. But Stephen A. Smith has now started covering mixed martial arts. When ESPN took over the contract for the UFC from Fox, the very first show they brought Stephen A. Smith out to talk with John Anik and Daniel Cormier. And let me just say, Stephen A. Smith looked like he was a deer in the headlights. You could tell that he had not covered this sport before. He said some things, and I'm like, maybe you need to, he just wasn't on point with his knowledge.
Well, it happens. Everybody has that moment.
Right. So, a few weeks ago we had Conor McGregor versus Cowboy Cerrone. This was a highly billed fight. This was a pay-per-view. This is the first pay-per-view, I believe, that Cowboy Cerrone was on. And we expected this to be a back-and-forth kind of pitched battle. Many people thought Conor McGregor would still win. A lot of us were hoping that Cowboy would win to create chaos in the UFC. But this fight only lasted 40 seconds. And we were all disappointed. But no one was more disappointed than Stephen A. Smith, who said, and I quote, "I'm quite disgusted. Let me be very, very clear. I'm honored to be up here with you guys. I'm a spectator watching the sport. I expected to see more than 40 seconds. I predicted McGregor was going to win this fight inside of 2 rounds. I thought he would take him out. Here's the deal. 15 seconds in, Cowboy Cerrone was done. He got hit with those shoulders in the clinch, and he was done. It looked like he gave up. It was just an atrocious performance on his part." First question that I have for you guys. Is what Stephen A. Smith said fair?
George, I'll let you take it because you're the trainer, you're the fighter.
I'm looking at his statements. The only statement I would take, issue with is when he said it was just an atrocious performance on his part. The other things he said up until then, I can agree with. It is what it is. We can call it what it is. But that last statement there, it was an atrocious performance on his part. I take issue with that.
Why do you take issue with that? What's up with that?
The criticism on Cowboy, I think, is kind of not deserved. We know after the fact now that Cowboy's orbital bone was fractured, as well as his nose was broken. Right out the gate, within 40 seconds. He didn't get a chance to actually perform, much less to call his performance atrocious. He came out and got caught quick. That happens in MMA. I recently heard, I think it was Joe Rogan, talking about the fact that MMA is one of the only sports where the sport ends early and can end very early. Nobody's stopping a basketball game halfway through or in the first half or anything like that. Nobody's stopping a football game halfway through the game or anything like that. MMA, totally different take. a fight can be stopped as quick as within 5 seconds. We've seen that before.
Mm-hmm. But
To call Cowboy's performance atrocious, I feel is unfair and unwarranted. Cowboy came in there to fight. He didn't get an opportunity to showcase his skills, but we can't call his performance atrocious as a result.
I think out of respect, we can't call his performance atrocious, but at the same time, if we go back to last week's episode, we were pretty brutal and we sounded exactly like this.
Gave up.
We didn't use the word atrocious, but at the same time, when this was being said, we didn't know that there was an orbital bone broke. We didn't know that there was a broken nose. It was alleged that the nose was broken, but we didn't have any confirmation. All we know is that Cowboy Cerrone had the opportunity to take Conor McGregor down, and he didn't, because he had, in the previous week's press conference, said he was going to stand and bang, which was ill-advised against someone like Conor McGregor. And so it's kind of difficult for me. We always have the mantra, right, at our show. We respect the man in the ring, right? Honor goes to the man in the ring because it takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength to get in the ring. And it's easy to go and be a Monday morning quarterback and say he should have done this, he should have done that. So respect to Cowboy Cerrone, but we thought that his game plan going in and his actions going in was ill-advised versus the opponent that he was facing, and the fact that we all agreed that we felt like he gave up because he had faced such early adversity in that fight. So I don't know that Stephen A. Smith is actually wrong. Maybe it's disrespectful, but I don't know that he's wrong. John, what do you think?
I think it was not wrong. And if you're a super casual fan like that, like you only come to see the pay-per-views and watch somebody get knocked out, not knowing the history or anything, it can be construed as right. He was absolutely right. Because people who have never seen the sports before come to see the main event, know that these two fighters were hyped, came in there, and within 40 seconds, he's done. It harkens back to the first UFC, where people were getting, I can remember, the one of the first matches lasting less than a minute, and it was just because he went in there and did damage, and he was brutal. It was nothing against the fighters. The fighters were well respected in their discipline. It was just that one had a better game plan than the other. Now, we can look at Ariel Helwani, who was really harsh towards Cowboy and pretty much said that he gave up at the press conference on Wednesday, the Wednesday before the fight, which I was like, that was really brutal if you didn't know who Ariel Helwani was, because Ariel Helwani is so respected and he's been around these fighters. He's talked to these fighters on a level that we haven't yet. And if he says that Cowboy sounded like somebody who had to convince himself there was going to be a fight, I take that with some serious weight. Okay, did Cowboy give up before he got in the ring? I don't know. All I know is that he took some serious blows. Most fighters I've seen fight through it. We can look at Josh Koscheck to see that he got his orbital bone broken early by George St. Pierre. The downside from quitting, he can never stop blinking for the rest of his life. We've seen guys fight through broken noses before, but it was just such a blitz on Conor McGregor's side that there wasn't much that could be done. So for a casual fan, I understand what Stephen Smith is saying. I understand that. And that's from a very casual light fan. He says that he's watched boxing for over 25 years. Look how brutal boxing is. Okay.
So, yeah, so all of that to say, you think that Stephen A. Smith was right or wrong?
Okay, you see, you're gonna make the later segments feel much more better. All right, first of all,
I just
okay,
you talked a long time, and I'm like, wait, I've lost
okay,
your point. You're
all
going
right.
into
The point
boxing now.
is,
I don't know your point
okay,
anymore.
okay. The point is, from a certain point of view, that he is right. It just depends on which point of view from. From our point of view, we could say he was being disrespectful but honest. To another person's point of view, he was just like, yeah, that's the truth. That's just nothing but the truth. You know,
What do you think?
I
What
think
do
he
you
was
think?
being, I think he was being disrespectful but honest.
Okay, all right. Because here's someone else who was aggravated about this. Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan was irritated about this. And what he said was, with fighting, you have to know it or no one's going to respect you. If you don't know what you're talking about and you're talking about it in front of millions of people, man, that's a bad look for everybody. It's a bad look for ESPN. It's a bad look for him. It's a bad look for the sport. It's like there's other people that can do this. I mean, like us.
Yeah.
There's a lot of currency in being Stephen A. Smith. You know, he's really entertaining. The S talking that he does, he's a guy that's fun to watch. He talks a lot of poop, and he gets real loud, and everybody disagrees with him. Look, it's made him a fantastic career, and that's why he carries that over to MMA. I think it's a bad idea. So Joe Rogan wasn't having any of it, and I think to Joe Rogan's credit, you have to begin to think about it. He has seen so many fighters. He knows these fighters. He knows what these fighters are capable of. He has covered this sport, not just sports like Stephen A. Smith, but this sport for decades. And so
Yes.
when you have someone like Stephen A. Smith, who at least from an MMA perspective is an outsider, saying something about the sport and one of the greatest in the sport that's still active, like Cowboy Cerrone, in such a negative and harsh way, it can't come off as anything but negative. Now, this critique that Joe Rogan had, George, I would assume that you would agree kind of with Joe Rogan saying, if you don't know the sport, you shouldn't be talking like this.
Absolutely. And you also have to remember Joe was there doing the show with him. So Joe was privy to, conversations we probably didn't even hear, as well as the other conversations that did go on air and which were kind of cringeworthy at some point, like you said earlier. When you hear Stephen A. Smith talking about MMA in general, not just this particular issue with Cowboy Cerrone, it sounds kind of cringeworthy. He is not an aficionado of the sport. He doesn't really know what he's talking about, and that he's just, he's coming up with things on the go almost. It
But
doesn't feel like he's even done his homework when you hear him talk about MMA.
but you do understand that when the way that Stephen A. Smith was talking was also that group of casuals that don't really follow the sport on the level that we do or even Joe Rogan does.
Well,
To me, that's what Stephen Smith was doing. He was voicing their opinion to it. And instead of Joe Rogan jumping down his throat and saying all this, he should have turned this into a teachable moment and be like, "Look, dude, this is the reason why that we do this," and not trying to berate him or make fun of his punching drills or anything like that. Because once you start insulting a person, the person's gonna stop paying attention. All right. And instead, he should have said, "Dude, this is how it's done. This is what we know. This is why we do it. This is what happened there." If he had broken down to him and explained his argument carefully, that could have possibly won Stephen A. Smith over and educated him a little bit further, which is what I would have assumed that Joe Rogan was there to do. Since Stephen A. Smith and the other guy who I do apologize, I don't know his name were there to do not only observe but to learn.
So Stephen A. Smith responds. So Joe Rogan starts blowing him up on Twitter and in the media and things like that. Stephen A. Smith was at a family get-together, but he's like, "Oh, I am going to respond." And he did. And this is what Stephen A. Smith said in response. I don't claim to be an aficionado. I don't claim to be the aficionado you are or anyone else covering the sport. But excuse me, I've been a reporter for 25 years. I've covered sports on a variety of competitive levels, regardless of what the sport is. That includes boxing and the UFC. I don't take much It doesn't take much to look at 3 shoulder shots to the nose that Conor McGregor gave Cowboy Cerrone, watching him fold inside of 20 seconds, knowing that he only got 1 strike off, and oh, by the way, was blocked by Conor. Conor McGregor did not get the opportunity to show us enough for us to believe Nurmagomedov or Masvidal that someone could that's something that could potentially happen to them. I didn't see it because Cowboy Cerrone in his first pay-per-view match folded. I respect him, but he folded like a cheap tent. Period. Bad night for him. Bad night. That's all, and I stand by that, and I'm going to still stand by that. Now, there's a couple of things in that statement from Stephen A. Smith that I think we need to talk about. First of all, you always know that someone is feeling super defensive when they feel the need to reestablish their credentials. You know, it's like someone says you're wrong. It's like, wait a minute. I have all of these certificates on my wall, which gives me credibility to say the things that I'm going to say. No, you haven't been covering the UFC for very long. You haven't been covering the UFC. You haven't watched Cowboys fights. You haven't followed Cowboys' career. You may have caught up in some of the briefing things that you guys have done and watched some highlights of Cowboys' career, but this is a man who has 50 fights. And even though we were like, well, Cowboy gave up, we still have this level of respect of Cowboy Cerrone saying we wanted to see more from him. We wanted to see him use his jiu-jitsu and things like that. If he would have gone that way, if Stephen A. Smith would have gone that way and saying there were opportunity and skills that Cowboy Cerrone had that could have avoided him getting those strikes, then I would have been like, okay, you know what you're talking about. But if you're going to go with your, I have been covering the sports world for 25 years, I'm going to be like, what does that mean? What does that mean for the UFC? And I'm gonna give him some props in saying, yes, it's true. When a fight lasts 40 seconds, and this is where we've talked about before, when a fight lasts 40 seconds, you don't get to see a lot. We did not see in a 40-second fight what a true Conor McGregor versus a true Cowboy Cerrone fight would look like. 9 times out of 10, that fight goes longer than 40 seconds. I think we can all agree at that. So we saw an exception that night. It doesn't take anything away from Conor McGregor's performance. It doesn't take anything away from who Cowboy Cerrone is. All it is there was an exception to what has typically been the performance of these two fighters within the octagon. And like you were saying, George, or not, but
Because
what you were. Oh, go ahead.
let's talk about that. I was going to go right there. One of the statements he said, Conor McGregor did not get the opportunity to show us enough. Conor is known for ending things early. Let's take it back to boxing. Nobody said that these guys that Mike Tyson were putting away in 90 seconds or less when he killed Leon Spinks. Nobody went back and was saying Leon Spinks was a bum or things like that.
Actually, they were. Okay, if I remember, they were calling him a bum. Did you see his drill?
You knew who Leon Spinks was before that, and you knew that could be a game fight if it turned out right. But you also knew ahead of time Mike Tyson was known for starching people quickly.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor has made a name for himself by starching people and knocking people out, giving them that left hand of death. So when you say we didn't really get to see much of Conor, I think you did learn a few things about Conor. One, he's turned a corner in that the fight could be only it went all 3 rounds or he got subbed in that fight, right?
Yeah, he
went to the 4th round.
4 rounds. So
Conor's getting back on his winning ways. That's something we did learn in that. 2, we also learned that this fight was also a pre-Khabib setup fight. We knew Cowboy had ground game. We knew Cowboy had some submissions. We knew his ground game is high level ground game. Even though he's not an official black belt, I don't think he trains in the gi. We know his ground game is A1, especially in MMA. It's much different. So this was also a test set up to get Conor ready for a Khabib fight. If it had gone to the ground, we would have got to see Conor's stuff. Fortunately, Conor ended the fight early, which he was supposed to do. I think Conor made the statement, hey, I don't get paid by the hour. I'm not out here to please Stephen A. Smith or anyone else and let you decide whether or not you think I've stepped my game up to fight Khabib or Jorge. I settled this in the ring, in the cage. You know what I'm saying? This subjective talk coming from someone who's never even covered the sport is disrespectful. Not only to me, but to the fighter who I beat.
Well, let's get into that comment. So Connor joins the fray after that, and he said the call you discuss here is A+. I didn't show enough, but I'm not paid by the hour though. He goes, Joe's comments, however, come from you saying the opposition fighter quit. Broken nose, orbital bones say different. Fighting is vicious. Those who make the walk deserve full respect. Apologize. And, that is the ethos of our show, is those who make the walk deserve respect. And Cowboy Cerrone deserves 100% respect for getting in there and doing what he did. I don't know what else to say. But Stephen A. Smith decided he was going to respond and say, and now you can see him starting to pull back from his comments now, right? And so he says, Sir, much respect to the great notorious MMA, that's Conor McGregor. My recollection on what I said is that's the way it looked. Cowboy Cerrone is a perennial top 10 fighter. Much respect to him for the lengthy career he's had. Wishing him nothing but the best. I don't think it's unfair to say that more than 40 seconds was expected from a tough of a SOB as he is. Nor do I think it's wrong to assume that there's no way that the 40-second fight would take place with you and Nurmagomedov or Masvidal. We expected more than what we got. Props to you for that. But know how tough Cowboy is. Lots of fans like myself expected more, and I don't think Joe Rogan is right to question my knowledge about a fight just because I wasn't satisfied with what I saw. I said what I said, and I meant it. It's possible to do that and still have tremendous respect for you, and along with Joe Rogan. Both are fantastic for the UFC. I would enjoy it nearly as much without the both of you. I wish you both prosperity in the future, but we clearly disagree about Cowboys' performance on January 18th. Hashtag respect.
That sounds like I am backing away from this conversation because we're going to agree to disagree. And if I keep arguing with you, I'm going to be suspended again. So I'm cool.
No. You know what I think it is? I think it is if I keep arguing with you, then my limited knowledge of this particular sport will be exposed. And so therefore, I as Stephen A. Smith, I hold the high ground because I do have, one of the hit shows on ESPN, and I am, a well-known celebrity within the sports world. If I get into this argument, then I am going to lose my credibility that I'm barely hanging on to in the UFC.
I disagree. I think he's lost that credibility. They are going to have to replace him at some point. But what's good about this right now is it has created this fire around the UFC, around ESPN. And so people are tuning in, not because of a fight necessarily, but because Stephen A. Smith is going at it with Joe Rogan and Conor McGregor. This is like this is a great build-up for a fight, except we don't have another opponent for Conor right now.
We will soon. We'll
see. I don't know who Conor. Conor, if Conor's smart, he'll wait for the Masvidal Usman fight to resolve, and then in April we'll have the Nurmagomedov Ferguson fight resolve. And once you get there, then what you have is he can go 155 and fight Nurmagomedov, or he can go 170 and fight Masvidal. And so I think he's still in a good seat. He says he wants to fight in March, but I don't know who he's going to fight. Justin Gaethje?
Yeah, that's a good one. That is a good one. That's one that people were hollering for as well.
I think it's a dangerous fight. I don't know why he would want to fight that.
Yeah, I think the better fight for him to take would be the Jorge fight at 170. He doesn't lose any stock at 155 with that fight. Mm-hmm. He still has the matchup with Khabib. And the Gaethje fight is a dangerous fight for him because if he loses that fight, he's not going to get the rematch with Khabib.
Yep.
But remember, Jorge has stated if the money is the same on both sides between Usman and McGregor, he's still going after Usman because he does not like that man.
I don't know. I think he was right the first time. That represents a change of position because the first time he said Usman and the welterweight title will always be there, but that Conor fight will not. I would take the Conor fight, and if he loses to Conor, I don't think he will. But if he did, Jorge's such a star power. He's one fight away from getting back in the title contention anyway. So,
yeah.
So I don't know, but That's it for the headline. Let's get into the official decision. All right, this is the official decision. This is where we look at the fights that happened this past weekend. There were 2 fights this past weekend. There was Bellator 238, Bud versus Cyborg, January 25th, 2020 from the Forum in Inglewood, California. United States. There were 6 fights on that card. Let's just go through the results, and then we'll get to the main event here. Emily King defeated Ava Knight via submission in round 1. Raymond Daniels, one of the most up-and-coming, exciting fighters in Bellator right now, defeated Jason King via TKO in round 1. Sergio Pettis, little brother of Anthony Pettis from the UFC. Sergio Pettis left the UFC and came to Bellator. He won his first fight out against Alfred Kashakayan via submission in the round 1. Juan Archuleta defeated Henry Corrales via unanimous decision. Darian Caldwell defeated Adam Borix via submission, and Chris Cyborg became the first woman to win championships in 4 different promotions by defeating Julia Budd via TKO in round number 4. That fight wasn't really that close. Julia Budd did have some moments, but Chris Cyborg is just Chris freaking Cyborg. What you gonna
Indeed. Nothing.
Nothing.
You gonna lay down?
Hand her your belt. And then walk out. Here's the thing. Julia Budd made $100,000 more than Chris Cyborg in this fight. I don't know how that's possible, but she did. Maybe because she was a champ. I don't know. But now Chris Cyborg is the champ. 4 promotions. And you know what I like the best about it is that now Chris Cyborg is in Bellator, and Bellator does crossover fights. So it's possible that at a 145, they might be able to get, I don't know if Ryzen has a featherweight female champion, but she might be able to fight Ryzen and get their championship, or maybe Scott Coker can get that fight with ONE FC and see if she can't get that belt. So I like what Bellator is doing with these crossover fights, and that's what Chris Cyborg needs now. Put her on the road, have her fight anyone who has a belt.
Whoa. Let's back this up. This is coming from the man who doesn't like super fights, though. This is coming from the man that talks about the continuity of the belt. This is coming from the man that talks about people jumping in line and getting tired of those shots. Who where's the body snatchers at?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Let me clarify. So I don't like super fights in the UFC because people are jumping weight and they're ignoring the ladder, and when they do that, that creates havoc all throughout the ladder. But when we're talking about crossover fights where we're going from promotion to promotion, my champion versus your champion, there isn't the 145-pound weight division for women on this planet known as Earth is pretty shallow. You're going to have maybe 1 or 2, 3 at the most in each promotion that's going to have someone who you would be willing to sacrifice to the great goddess known as Chris Cyborg.
Listen up, Stephen A. Smith.
Oh, now that's going to be the insult. That's the new insult.
Is that what we're doing now?
And just because my last name is Smith, there is no relation.
I'm just saying. You kind of back it up off of your original. I get what you're saying. You're trying to justify why you think this is such. But, I mean, it does break the continuity of championship lineage when you really look at it. If Chris Cyborg goes over and takes Ryzen's belt, she's got to defend that belt, I take it, at some point, right?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. But she also has this belt over here at Bellator she needs to defend.
Yeah, but Bellator has like 3 featherweights.
We're still talking about continuity, though. If she's off defending her Ryzen belt somewhere else, I'm over here in Bellator like, what the hell? I mean, this is the same problem we had in the UFC.
That's right. And 2, you're going to send your champion to another promotion to destroy their champion. Is that a good business decision?
Yes! Yes, it is. It's a great
Not
business
when it's
decision.
Cyborg. Okay,
But
Cyborg.
super fights are a great business decision.
No, not inside the UFC. Like, not inside the UFC. Like,
Period.
going
Okay,
going
period.
going going from promotion to
We need
promotion.
to table
Establish.
this conversation because we actually what we're supposed to be doing right now is the official decision. And right now we've gotten into a whole other topic, and
Okay,
we probably need to.
fair point. Fair point. Otherwise, we're going to be here for 2 hours instead of one. And
Yeah,
you
Steve
know.
Smith. I'm
So
sorry, Ryan.
okay, I'm okay. So we're gonna circle back. I mean, I'm not gonna accost you physically. Let's just say that we're gonna establish that now. So I'm gonna
Here,
talk bad about
let
you
me pull
behind your
up my
back.
combat sports talk so I can show my bald head off. Call me Joe Rogan.
You probably kick like Joe Rogan. I tell you that. Um, the UFC also had a fight that night in Raleigh, North Carolina. UFC Fight Night Blades versus Dos Santos. That was also on the same night of January 25th. There were 5 fights on the call. Jamal Hill defeated Darko Stosic via unanimous decision. My new girl, Angela Overkill Hill, defeated Hannah Cyphers via TKO in round 2. Did I call that? I'm going to tell you what. I called it. Did I call it?
But did he put it on verdict?
Playing Angela now too.
Yeah,
Do what?
He didn't put it on verdict, first of all. Okay. And second of all, I think everybody needs to go back to the earlier podcast where he was dogging her like bitterly. Like like she snatched food from his plate and laughed on the way out the door. Okay.
Okay.
Did he pull a Stephen A. Smith?
Oh my gosh. Are we going to keep going Stephen A. Smith? Is that what we're doing here?
What happened. I think
Oh my
he was
gosh.
slick hating on the fighter.
Okay. All right. Let me just let the record show. Actually, you know what? I don't even really have to let the record show. I wonder if I can do this. I don't know that I can. I'm not going to worry about it. But what I said, go back to 50 minutes and 23 seconds in last week's episode. If you skip to that, you hear what I say about Angela Hill. I own the fact that I have talked tremendous amount of crap about Angela Hill.
Okay.
When I've gone so far as to say I like her as a person and all the interests that she has and all the cool things that she does. I just don't want to see her fight anymore because it's like disappointing. But
after this weekend, would you like to see her fight anymore?
Heck yeah! Woo!
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yes, yes. Let that woman fight. Just don't let her fight Joanna Jędrzejczyk. That's all I'm saying.
Can we get the choo-choo train here? He jumped on the train.
Oh man, yeah. You know how it is. Let's see here. Where is the choo-choo train? Oh my goodness, there it is. Yeah, here we go. It's taking too long to find it now. There it is.
Oh.
There it is. I am on it.
He is the conductor on the Angela Overkill Hill train right now.
Yeah, but
exactly.
I went through why I thought that Angela Hill deserved my support, and she did it. I said, win this one for me, and she did. So I got to give my shouts out. Much props to Angela Hill. All right. And she wasn't even the main event. She should have been. But
wow, you're deep on this train. We might need to reach out to Angela and see if we can get her on the show.
I know, right? I know.
She made a believer. You know, I thought love was only true in fairy tales. But anyway, so Alex Perez defeated Jordan Espinosa via submission. Michael Chiesa defeated Rafael dos Anjos via unanimous decision. Outside of some really big leg kicks and things like that, Michael Chiesa was never in any danger. I mean, this dude is getting big.
Dude,
what is this, like third fight at 170?
Yes, and I feel foolish because I talked a little crap about this kid when he first showed up on the scene, but he was at 155. But when he got to 170, he's huge.
Yeah, I mean, he's making his way up the ladder. You know, hopefully there's no super fights that's going to derail all this stuff, like putting Conor McGregor in there with Usman or something like that. But Michael Chiesa could be that next up and coming challenger for Kamaru Usman once we resolve, the next fight with Usman versus Masvidal, if that happens. I could see
No, he doesn't.
I could see Chiesa being 1 or 2 fights away from that title shot.
He doesn't want. You saw what he did at the end of the post fight. He wants to go on the Kobe Covington apology tour, and he wants him to be the next. He wants Kobe to be the next stop for him. Okay, on the Kobe Covington apology tour.
And that's why I say if Michael Chiesa is 1 or 2 fights away, if he gets that Kobe Covington fight, even though I know Kobe is trying to make his chin great again, his jaw. Michael Chiesa, if he were to get over Kobe Covington, oh yeah, you got to give him a title shot. I mean, Kobe Covington was in that fight to win it against Kamaru.
He's still dangerous. He just can't talk about it right now.
And that's the way I like it. Like, I haven't heard him say anything since he got his jaw broken. Let's keep it that way. In the main event of the evening, Curtis Blaydes defeated Junior Dos Santos via TKO in round number 2. That shot, I mean, he threw out his left. He threw out his left to judge the distance and then came back over the top with the right as Junior Dos Santos was trying to throw an uppercut. But he landed first. He landed hardest, and the rest is just history. You would have been proud of those knees, George. You'd have been proud of those knees.
Yeah.
Blaydes was throwing knees?
Blaydes was throwing knees. Had him in the... He landed it. You saw that it was rocked. Pushed Junior Santos up against the cage. Got the clinch. Started throwing knees, and then boom, boom, boom. Finish it up with some punches. And they had to come in and save Mr. Dos Santos, which makes me sad because I like Sagano. I like Junior Dos Santos.
Yes.
Yeah, I had Dos Santos set to win this fight, man. I'm surprised Curtis pulled it out.
Yeah.
Curtis is just a monster. I mean, he really is a monster, especially for a guy his size. I mean, he gets in and he does close combat very well. Elbows and knees and forearms. He was doing them beautifully.
And that's not even his style. His style is wrestling. He's a wrestler.
Yes.
He's a wrestler. He's set up at a bad time to be in the heavyweight division, man. When you got Stipe, you got DC, you got Derek Black,
Ngannou,
and then we got a new dark horse in the division.
Rosenstruck.
Yes, Curtis, I think you're going to have a hard time making your way to that belt, man. And, you got a couple of losses to some guys who are already up there, so it's not like people are just vying to see him fight. I mean, I don't think he's necessarily the greatest spokesman or hype man either. So, and you got a couple of guys in his same position in different things as well. So,
I don't know. I think this is the best time for him because this is what we wanted from our heavyweight division. Because how many years did we go where they would announce a heavyweight fight and just like, it's gonna be all right. Now we're excited about the heavyweight division because there are pure sharks in there, and
who do you want to fight next?
Who would I like to see fight next? See Curtis fight next? Yeah. Oh man. It would have to be the Black Beast. I would love to see him fight him. I think that'll be a good strikers match for him. Which both of them are. I would say they're both at journeyman level right now. Black Beast is kind of on the lesser end compared to Curtis. So I mean, or give him Rosenstruck. Let's give him Rosenstruck.
Well, Rosenstruck is fighting Ngannou right now. So. We're going to see what happens.
Winner. Or no. Give me the winner.
You can't, because if Ngannou wins, then Ngannou's already knocked out Curtis Blaydes in the first round. So we'll have to see. There's a lot of things that have to kind of go into place. But I will say this is that before the Ngannou fight, what I was saying about Curtis Blaydes is Curtis Blaydes really is the future of the heavyweight division. Once you resolve DC, once you kind of start getting a ladder kind of built, I think that the person with the most upside right now at heavyweight is Curtis Blaydes, and I think that if he can keep that winning streak going, then the sky's really the limit for him. I feel like he got caught. Everybody gets caught by Francis Ngannou. I'd like for him to try to get that back, but I think if he hasn't fought Black Beast, I think he can fight Derek Lewis. If he hasn't, maybe what happens after Rosenstruck, maybe he ends up fighting that fight. There's Alexander Volkov that he could fight. He's got other fighters out there that he can fight and really make a name for himself. But I think you're right, George. Until he's able to start talking and really bringing some attention, he's either got to knock out people in devastating fashion, or he's got to learn how to promote himself, because that's the only way you're really going to get up the ladder and get a title shot.
Okay, with other guys, yeah.
So there we go. Let's go ahead and get into finding the angles. This is Finding the Angles. This is where we talk about the headlines that are making the waves in the UFC world. And we're going to start off with one I know that John Keys is very excited about. That MMA Mania reported that coronavirus could impact Weili Zhang, UFC 248 training camp in Beijing. So what's going on right now? Let's just kind of talk about it a little bit. Is that there is a potential epidemic out there. There's a virus. They're calling it coronavirus, but it's happening in China. It started in the Wushu province, right? And so far, about almost 5,000 people have been infected, and 106 people have been killed. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have raised travel warnings to level 3, its highest level, urging citizens to avoid all non-essential travel to China. With 106 dead so far, Beijing has brought into extraordinary quarantine to more than 50 million people. With the mayor of Wuhan, I said Wushu, it's Wuhan, the outbreak's epicenter, said 5 million people have already left the city. The health minister said coronavirus is increasing in virulence and could be contagious even before people exhibit symptoms, making it apparently healthy people possible carriers. A scientific assessment of the spread of disease, assuming an optimistic 90% quarantine, still predicted more than 59,000 infections and 1,500 deaths, twice what SARS was back in 2002-2003. Two more pieces. CDC said on Monday that there were no new confirmed cases of coronavirus overnight, but it is still investigating 110 people in 26 states in the United States. And the United States health officials confirmed 5 cases of pneumonia-like illness, while infections have also been confirmed in France, South Korea, Japan, Nepal, Thailand, Cambodia, Singapore, Vietnam, Taiwan, Canada, Sri Lanka, and Germany. UFC 248 is taking place in our backyard, Houston, Texas. And so, therefore, we need to be, I believe it's 248, it's in Houston, Texas.
Yes.
We need to, do we need to be concerned whether or not Weili Zhang, coming from Beijing with this virus that's spreading around China and all these quarantines, could there be a chance that someone in her camp or she could become infected and travel to the United States, or the fight get called off because the CDC and the U.S. government concerns that something could happen might cause this fight to get canceled because they're not willing to give her a visa because of the potential outbreak.
As far as I know, as early as today, they have locked down pretty much a good majority of the citizens in China during the New Year in China. And that's a major travel time for them. So if they're willing to do that for that many people, they will deny her a visa for Weili to travel here. Okay, it just takes one person to cough on Weili's training videos, one cough, and that fight is off. I guarantee it. All right.
George, have you ever fought against someone who was ill? Have you ever? What's been your experience with just someone who's been ill, maybe the flu or something like that?
I've never fought against someone who I thought was ill or knew was ill or anything like that. But I have seen fighters who've come in the cage with different rashes that could or could not be other things that they could be contagious. I've seen fighters come in with hell. We've seen some UFC fighters fight with things that we knew and saw to be issues but somehow they got past the commission.
Yeah, Kevin
So
Lee
yes,
against Tony Ferguson. He came in with a big staph infection on his chest, and we're like, "What are you doing?" Then he bled all over him.
I've seen it here locally where fighters show up with staph infections and things like that, and the commission may or may not catch it. I've seen fights stopped just before the fight takes place, because during a walkout, maybe a doctor or someone notices a staph infection or something that is not right. So it's happened. I've met promoters who actually try to hide different things in order to allow fight cards to go on. Wow. So it's happened. So I want to go back, because you mentioned that this fight was taking place in our backyard. It's not. This one is 248 is going to be in Vegas, I think, if I'm not mistaken. 247 is in Houston.
Oh, okay, my mistake.
Okay.
But with that being said, I guess that makes the folks in Houston feel a little bit safer, knowing that they won't have to be subject to the coronavirus. But Vegas, you better be on the lookout, man.
Yeah, I don't want to be like, freaking out or we have to hope that the authorities are taking the best precautions, and that, Weili Zhang is doing whatever she can to avoid being exposed to it. But when it comes to China and population density, when, on a virus that is spread before the symptoms begin to show up, it's just so hard to track all of the potential vectors that's coming out with the virus. So we'll just keep our eye on that.
Let's talk about something here, because why is it every time these viruses pop up, they're coming out of China initially? Like, what is going on?
Well, I'm glad you asked, George, because we may have an answer.
Really?
Because I was surfing the net today very studiously, because I was looking for a problem to solve at my job, and I came across a picture.
Here we go with the conspiracy. Here we go. This is the picture.
This picture. Put it up.
It's up. It's up.
Put up. All right. Look at that.
What are we looking at? What are we looking at?
If anybody who's ever played Resident Evil, they know what they're looking at. They're looking at the Umbrella Corporation symbol. That's what they're looking at. All right. That is, and let me get the name out. It is Rulan Baohusan Biotech Limited. Okay. That is in Wuhan right now. All right. That is in that city. They've had that corporation in that city. It is a biotech city. I'm not saying that they're doing anything janky or anything like that. I'm just saying it's awfully coincidental that they got a biotech corporation in a city that is got this virus on it now.
Wow.
Check your safety levels at the water, people. It can be hectic.
You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and get my full hat, which is where my foil cone on my hat. Like, this is crazy. You guys are crazy. Crazy.
I'm just saying, man. Hey, there it is. There it is. Put it up. It's back up. Yeah.
So
there it is.
Resident Evil, because of Resident Evil, and it had an Umbrella Corp. What the Resident Evil? It's about zombies. Is that what it is?
Resident Evil was about a virus.
Yes, the T virus.
Okay. Man.
And T is for Tyron, which is the third rock from the sun, which is the corona.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, he brought it home. Baseball swing, pop. That one is out of the park, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
You've never seen The Last Train to Busan, have you?
No.
You should really watch it tonight, right before you go to bed. Good thing.
No.
It has a happy ending.
No.
Last Train to Busan.
No. All right. Let's continue. No. Let's continue. So we talked about Raymond Daniels. He is one of the most up and coming fighters in Bellator. outstanding knockouts. Just go and Google Raymond Daniels knockout, and you're going to see him do some amazing things. The only other guy who does amazing things like that is Michael Venom Page. And Michael Venom Page also fights at Bellator. They can make this happen. But Raymond Daniels said he's only interested in fighting Michael Venom Page if a title's on the line. And I'm like, that's crazy. Y'all should be fighting for the title eliminator. Because right now, Diego Lima has the belt. Michael Venom Page hadn't fought anybody that could justify him getting that title shot. I think Raymond Daniels should be the guy. Put them in the cage. This is going to be freaking Street Fighter. This would be like me fighting John, except this time I win.
Man, step out of that dream. Okay, goodness, you're not going to beat me. All right, you will not beat me. It's just like when you tried to beat KC, and I don't know if it really happened or not.
Oh, you know what? Your sound is starting to mess up, dude. I don't know. I don't
like Steven Smith.
I don't know what's happening. I can't hear you anymore.
Because, ladies and gentlemen, we have video out there. Because Ryan, somebody unfortunately took video of this fight, of said fight. There's actually 2 parts of it. I'm going to put it up there, people. All right, and y'all need to make the decision on who won and who lost.
I won. Standing 8 count. You got to give me a 10-8 round. At that point, I won the first round. I won the second round, 10-8. He can't win the fight without a knockout. It's a 3-round fight.
All I can say is Casey's not here to defend himself, people.
He wasn't there to defend himself either. I mean, he was in the ring. He had gloves on, but he wasn't defending himself. That's why they gave him a standing 8 count. That's how boxing works. This is coming from Stephen A. Smith. There you go.
Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to put these videos up. I want y'all to decide who did this.
All right. Macy Barber says she had to fight through it. Macy Barber, she had a torn ACL. She just knew that she had to fight through it. She had to go one more round with a torn ACL. I mean, it was completely torn. It wasn't like pulled or anything like that. This thing was ripped off. But she fought an extra round and made it to a unanimous decision loss to Roxanne Modafferi. Incidentally, someone else I picked to win. I want to get to this story real quick. Tyron Woodley blew through a lot of money during his UFC title reign. You know, he's getting back into the ring against Leon Edwards, and he told ESPN and Ariel Helwani, I blew through a lot of money, man. A lot of money. And I was jewelry and VIP and all these experience, all these things that came with championship life. You really, when you come from where I come from, you never imagine making that type of money. You never imagine being in that type of position. You work hard for it, and I didn't get there by accident, but nobody taught me finance. You know what? I think he's probably right on that. But it just goes to show how great Israel Adesanya is. Because Israel Adesanya came from meager beginnings, talking about having to carry. No, that was Usman talking about.
In Ghana.
But no, that was Usman talking about having to carry water.
But okay.
Israel Adesanya it came from Nigeria and went to New Zealand. But before he became champion, he knew to go and start getting counseling and start setting up his life so that he doesn't do what Tyron Woodley did and just kind of buy in and believe himself to be, something more than what he was. Yes, being a champion is great. Having the belt and achieving the pinnacle of the sport in your weight class is always something to be proud of, but you don't need to spend like that. You don't need to blow through that kind of money and lose yourself in the hype of being the champ. And that sounds like that's what Tyron Woodley did.
But how many times do we hear this, though? We hear this constantly in athletes' life, especially, athletes that came from nothing. They say the moment that they get some money, they think they have to live a certain lifestyle. And I'm not just saying athletes. I'm just coming from all celebrities, that most of them that come from meager beginnings get into the life, and they think they have to portray this lifestyle. You don't have to portray that lifestyle. Just be you. Be happy, be productive, and we'll love you for the thing that you do. Okay? Tyron Woodley, you're a killer. We love you for being a killer. All right? You didn't have to live that life. We would have respected you much more if you didn't. So get back to the winning ways, get that money up, and, Get in the guard, make money. That's all I'm saying.
The one thing that I didn't see that he talked about wasting money on is that rap career. Because I mean, if there's anything that he should stop, it's rapping. I mean, hey, buy your jewelry, buy your cars, stop rapping. That's all I gotta say.
Man, it's not for everybody. Not everybody's built for that life. Okay.
To hear that he's blown so much money, man, it's kind of it saddens me because this is a man we know works hard. He's got a TMZ show, he's got a podcast, he's got a rap career. I think he's got some sponsorships that he's doing some things with. This is also an outspoken individual in the community there in Ferguson during the riots and stuff like that. Like, this is someone who you wouldn't expect that from, especially with as much work as this man is putting in different realms on top of that. He's got his hands in many, many different pots. And to hear, that he made, I don't know if he's going broke or he just is talking about how much money he's blown. But it kind of saddens me.
Yeah, it doesn't say. Yeah, he didn't go so far as to say that he is broke, but he definitely said that he spent a lot of money in frivolous ways. So, I hope that that him talking about it shows growth and that he has, learned from his lesson. But at the same time, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, when you get money fast, I mean, John Jones is proof positive that when you get money fast and you're not used to having that kind of money, you want to do all the things that you never got to do, and you start believing the hype that you are the greatest thing that ever happened, in the sport. And, there's not much to say about that. Speaking of people getting some notoriety and then wasting it away, crime-fighting MMA superhero Phoenix Jones arrested on drug charges. Now, for those of you who don't remember Phoenix Jones was an MMA fighter, not in the UFC, but his name is Ben Fodor. And after his MMA career, he decided to become a vigilante on the streets, a costumed vigilante, and he would patrol the streets of Seattle. Seattle being a city in the state of Washington that has a mutual fight law that says if you are a private citizen who wants to fight another private citizen, you just call the cops. The cops make sure there's no untoward type of activity that's happening, and you guys can give each other as the hands until somebody goes down and can't fight anymore. That's Washington. So he's been patrolling the streets, serving the community as Phoenix Jones, and he recently found himself on the wrong side of the law as he was arrested earlier this month in King County, Washington, and faces multiple drug charges after selling MDMA, that's a Molly, and cocaine. We got this story from Como. So according to Como, Jones sold 7.1 grams of Molly to an undercover agent at the Seattle Police Department at a Starbucks on November 21st. The agent had sent $300 via Venmo prior to the deal and paid another $200 in person and had an agreement for a future deal. The second transaction was consummated on January 9th, and Fodor and his alleged accomplice Andrea Berenston were arrested. 7 bundles of cocaine were discovered, according to the Como report. Unfortunately, this is not the first time Fodor has run into law enforcement. He's been cited 8 times for driving on a suspended license. He faces arraignment on Monday. So, if you're going to be a hero, you got to be a hero all the way. You can't wear a costume and patrol the streets and try to stop the baddies and then be a baddie yourself. That's called hypocrisy.
I think he was set up, man. It could have been an evil doppelganger, or he could have been like, it could have been like he was trying to set up to try and find an evil drug dealer that's in charge of Seattle, and he could have been like trying to bust him, and he just ran into the agents. It's bad.
Dude, I'm just shocked that we're making cocaine deals through Venmo and Cash App and things like that. Like, what is this world coming to, man?
Hey, man, sometimes.
How do you call up the plug and say, hey, man, I'm a Venmo you 300, man. Have my 7.6 grams ready. Where we doing that at, man? This is really taking place.
Hey, man, welcome to 2020.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Wow. You know, you would think folks would want to do cash and not leave some kind of trail.
Not everybody is smart as you.
Hey, Seattle is dangerous. Apparently, they got a standing fight law. Heck, you know.
I kind of wish that was more prevalent. I mean, not that I am a fighter. I am more of a lover. But anyway,
Hey, hit that music. Okay, that's for you. Hit that X-Files before you say that again.
Hey, anyway, that wouldn't work. We always say that wouldn't work in Texas because we also are a right to carry. So we'll start with them hands and we end up with them guns.
Yeah, we will air the place out.
So we're not going to cover any fights upcoming this weekend. So we'll go ahead and say thank you and shout out to all of the news outlets that we get our stories from, but mainly MMA Junkie, MMA Fighting, MMA Mania, and Bloody Elbow. Those are the ones that we get our headlines from and the things that we talk about. Follow us on social media. On Instagram, I'm at Combat Sports Talk.
I am at GEO Stallworth on Instagram.
And I am at Keys to Victory, and that's Keys with a KEYES to Victory.
All right. You can find us on our website at www.combatsportstalk.com. Definitely check out our fighters tab. You can meet some of the new fighters here in the DFW area. We've got a merchandise. You can get an awesome Combat Sports Talk t-shirt in the red, the blue, and the classic black. And we are on all of your podcasting platforms, including YouTube. That's about it, guys. We're going to be back next week. So
7 days.
In 7 days. Actually, you know what?
At 10:30.
I'm going to make it a point. I'm going to make it a point right now. I'm going to commit to two separate posts that I am going to post talking about MMA this week, because I want to get back into the habit of having reaction videos. I want to start getting this out so that you're not seeing Combat Sports Talk once a week, but you're going to get, more, getting us to talk more and more about the sport off cycle. So I challenge both of you to also post something that is MMA related outside of our regularly scheduled program.
Would KC handing you them hands, would that classify as MMA related, or would that just be a bully beatdown?
You know what? You can try to antagonize me all you want, but the fact is, the paper don't lie. My passport says I won that fight. USA Boxing says I won that fight. People who actually watch the video say I won that fight. The only person who say that they didn't win that fight, that I didn't win that fight, is KC, because someone handed him my belt.
Well, I'm just saying that they say that John Jones should have a perfect record, but he does have that one loss.
Yeah, but he was disqualified for that loss.
Therefore, it's still a loss.
I won by decision. It was a decision.
You left it to the judges, huh? You left it to popular vote.
KC left it to the judges.
There's a lot of burning going on tonight.
Because KC's not here. What? I'm not implicating KC, but I'm just saying KC's not here. Why you got to fight his battles?
Hey man, I'm just saying a person that's not here cannot defend himself. Somebody's got to stand up for him.
All right, you losing too. You taking an L too.
I'll just say I'll just present the video. You present your receipts, and we'll see what's up.
All right, next week I'll show the passport. It's dated and signed. That's all I got to say. On behalf of George G Money Stallworth.
Before you go there, got a couple things coming up I want to talk about.
Okay. Oh yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
All right, come on.
A couple events coming up here. So I am actually doing a crash course on Muay Thai. I think the weekend is February the 8th. It's a Saturday over at Krav Maga DFW. It is an open invite to the public. So if you have no Muay Thai experience whatsoever, or you just want to know what Muay Thai is about, this is a great opportunity for you to come in. There's no charge. It's absolutely free. All you have to do is to go to Krav Maga DFW's website, sign up there for that crash course. Come out, check me out. I'll be there teaching that day. Going to be a great event, folks.
All right, you talk about XKO or anything like that?
XKO coming up February 29th. I got a fighter fighting on that card. He's making his amateur debut. That is Ryan Gleek. Hopefully, maybe we can get him on the show sometime soon, as well as a few other folks. I really would like us to try to get some guests on here sometime soon, man.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, on behalf of George G Money Stallworth and John the Keys to Victory Keys, I'm Ryan Smith reminding you to keep your hands up, your chin tucked, and throw bombs. I'll catch you next time.